one thing that the ATF is authorized to do is disband.
You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny, not to hunt. It's to protect yourself from the police.
Not only no gun control, but, we're going to destroy the whole concept because the internet's going to serve guns.
And we want our rights, and by God, we're going to keep them, come hell or high water.
The eMilitia Podcast, Episode 68, Prison Abolition, a conversation with friends. Enjoy, fuckers.
Let's go.
Let's go. All right. Hello and welcome to the eMilitia Podcast. I'm BR, and God, I don't do these intros very often anymore, Mel. Joining me today is my co-host, Mel, aka Small Crimes, as well as Miss Buckles, and we're going to be handling a pretty controversial topic, even in the anarchist community. Whenever it comes up, we can say ACAB all day long, but what about the prisons? Oh, fuck. And now we have a border level kind of debate. So I'm pretty ignorant on this topic of prison abolition, but it's an important, heavy topic that's needs to be discussed. It's like a big fucking part of our culture at the minute. One of the highest levels of incarceration, or no, the highest level of incarceration in the world, in the United States. What do we think of it? Joining me is a bunch of passionate people on the subject. So we got returning guests, Ace Archist.
Yes, hello. I am Ace_Archist from Twitter, and this is a topic that really concerns me, and I don't think gets enough attention, even in libertarian spaces.
Fuck yeah. We have Cory joining us for the first time.
Hey everyone, nice to meet you. I am going by Cory Dedevilis, and I really care about this topic because I think that other than death, this is probably one of the worst things that can happen to someone. And for the people on this podcast, I mean, we're not criminals, but who knows? We got to watch out for ourselves.
Very true. Returning guest Jay Flintlock, who very, very fucking knowledgeable about the prison system from up close.
What's going on, y'all? I actually disagree with you, Cory. I think death is more mercy on someone than being caged. Because prison, as everyone in this group knows, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Twitter handle?
Pardon?
Your Twitter handle?
Oh, it's Jay Flintlock.
Okay.
It's J_Flintlock. I mentioned it before on the show. It was a different topic. It was actually a Valentine's Day episode, but I used to work in the prison. I was a correctional officer, and I was actually radicalized by BR in the prison parking lot. And then Mel actually brought up the idea of prison abolishment in that same parking lot before I quit. And then I thought about it, and then I researched it and got upset and got very mad. And then now I'm here.
Well, sorry about the alcoholism, but yeah. That's what we do. All right, Buckles?
I actually used to work in a prison for a little over a year, and it was a private prison. So I actually became super passionate because as I worked to actively help guys not return to prison, I was told by course administration that I was the bad guy and I was doing too good of a job and that they needed me to stop doing such a good job. So I say I quit because of the criminals and it wasn't the guys in orange.
Damn. Yeah. And Mel, you've been the one who's kind of put this topic on our radar for the longest time. I mean, as everyone knows, the eMilitia kind of started off as gun rights centric and not much else, and now we're talking about prison abolition. So, what put this on your radar?
Well, I came to libertarianism because of the murder of Kelly Thomas, which everybody's already heard that story before on previous podcasts. Then I started getting interested in criminal justice, and then it kind of became like minarchy, there was like less and less things that could justify sending people to prison for, and then I started reading more about it, and the history of how the history of prison is like the history of reforms and how most reforms ended up being like real bad, and then learned that it's just a system that can be reformed. It can only be abolished. And that's pretty much it. Started reading about it, and every story got me angry, and I became very passionate about it.
Yeah, and it's always a very hot button topic whenever we bring it up, because obviously, we've got the wood chipper libertarians on one side,
Mhm.
and then, like, kind of
The
the
closet
more peace and
bootlickers.
love. Yeah. Oh no. But yes, very hot button topic. That everyone has their own kind of solutions for how
Mhm.
justice in an anarchist society would be handled, and so when you're like, well, no more prisons, that's going to upset a lot of people. The inverse, it's a big fucking topic, and one of the many kind of issues we have to be like, okay, well, here's one way of handling it, but it's anarchy. There's no one solution for this. There's no one answer for why prison might be a flawed system. But wanted to get into it, kind of go into some stuff, have some pushback, maybe mainly from my ignorance. But yeah, where should we start, gang?
Okay, so right away, I want to tackle the most controversial aspect of prison abolition. Um, violent criminals and rapists going unpunishment is framed as an issue that proponents of abolition must respond to, despite the amount of rapists and murderers going free in the current system because of a bazillion things.
Well, yeah, fucking OJ.
Well, the system being so bad that most people don't even go to it for help, for starters. Um, and, the acquittal of killer cops, the election of rapist presidents, things like that. So, what about the rapists and murderers, guys? Anybody want to start?
Okay. I'll dive in. So
Go for it, man.
Yeah. So this was actually one of the things that helped radicalize me. You planted the seed, Mel, but when I started thinking about it, I noticed some things around me in the prison system. For example, you'll have child molesters get a couple, like 1 or 2 years, and if they have good behavior, and the people who take justice in their own hands and seek justice their way, i.e., killing them, they get way more time. There was an inmate that I had. I call him Kidder. It's not his real name. It's like an abbreviation of his name. But anyways, he shot a chomo in the streets after someone hurt his family, and he got like 15 years. And we released a child molester that morning who was only doing 2. And I think that's extremely wrong. I like the idea of taking. I like the idea of letting the victim or the aggressed seek justice in their own way. I think if the community decides that this person was aggressed upon, and that person gets collected, you get brought to the victim, and they decide what the punishment is. I mean, that obviously this can get carried away, and it could be taken the wrong way. But you're, the problem with prison is that the responsibility, you don't feel the repercussion and the responsibility of what happens to that individual. And so, like, okay, what if a mistake was made and that person was innocent? Well, now you have that person's blood on your hands. So you have to be pretty fucking sure of yourself, of if you're going to take another life, or if you're going to punish another person how you see fit. You have to be pretty sure, or else, I mean, you're just you're just as bad. But maybe I'm all over the place.
It's a big subject, and you're the first one going on in it, man. So
yeah. Sorry. Thank you for letting me work through my thoughts. I don't know. There's not really a stress on mental health in the country. In the state of Missouri, there's only 2 mental health hospitals, one in northern Missouri and one in St. Louis. And there's I can't remember how many prisons there are. I think there's like 21. I have my little fact sheet. Yeah, there's 21 state prisons. There's 2 hospitals, and correctional officers are officially encouraged to go to it's called CIT, crisis intervention training, to learn how to deal with mentally ill inmates. so that the state can like check a box saying that they were dealt with, but or like they did something about it.
Like they qualified for it.
Yeah, but honestly, if you try to use those skills, you're kind of branded a hug-a-thug, and people turn on you. The gang turns on you, and so you have a lot of mentally ill inmates. There's like a shit ton of mentally ill inmates, and they're like they commit a vast majority of crimes in the United States. I don't have the percentage in front of me, but you know, that's a lot of people who rape or murder. You know, there's something wrong with them. Mental health should be stressed in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, that's a great point. I think when we're talking about prison abolition, there's always, in most cases, when we're talking about anything, there's always like two main arguments, especially if you're coming at this from any sort of like libertarian perspective. There's always like an ethical argument, and then there's the practical argument, right?
Right.
I think for the practical argument, there's also like a bunch of really, really strong cases, right? It just is Flintlock, as you just like laid out a bunch of them, right? I mean, we can talk about like how a lot of times a person will go in for a crime, and it may be like a petty crime or something. It may not even be like murder or rape or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll come out much worse because they have to be hardened in prison in some sense to survive, right? So you're actually increasing the chance that they'll come out and they'll be more aggressive and more violent through the prison system itself. So that's a huge, huge problem. And just as you're saying, the mental health crisis. If I could take an ethical argument, though, which I think like some people might not like think about too much, and this might upset some libertarians even, which is that if you're a libertarian and you believe in the non-aggression principle, the non-aggression principle states that you can use defensive violence to stop someone from initiating violence on you. But it doesn't necessarily say that you have a right to punish a person. It says you have a right to collect restitution for the damage that was done, but you don't necessarily have a right to like harm them after the fact or continuously harm them, right? And I think prison, in some sense, it does that even to like people who actually are aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
What to do with the rapists and murderers. I think the best people who are on this issue, who are libertarians, are Roderick Long and Bob Murphy. So Bob Murphy, his system I really, really enjoy. His idea of a system is where, okay, let's say someone murders someone, right? And let's say in this system, there are no prisons, none at all. And the only penalty for murdering someone is they must pay $1,000 in restitution to the victim's family. It's just an arbitrary number. I just said it. It's, just for the example. But let's just say that's the only thing. Most people will be reviled by that. It'll be like a revulsion deep in their soul. It's like, that's horrible. They only have to pay $1,000. Well, while this is true, this is like, if that was the case, there would be nothing theoretically stopping the victim's family from killing the murderer and paying the $1,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that other case. So the victim's family also would not be like go to prison either for doing that. So once you realize that, if you're having, there could also be things like sanctuaries for criminals that act as prisons, but are not, they don't have the same incentive structure that prisons do. So an example of this would be like, let's say that a murderer or a rapist is found guilty, and there's no prisons necessarily. But essentially what they say is that, look, if you do not make restitution or if you do not self-exile yourself, we will not protect your rights whatsoever. And then now that criminal, knowing that anyone could go and hurt that criminal and they would not be prosecuted for it, that would incentivize the criminal to find some other place to seek sanctuary at that would protect their rights on specific conditions.
Okay.
I think Cory's wants to say something.
Yeah, no worries. Just real quick, one issue I take with the restitution model, and I think it only really applies in the case of murder, is I think it actually violates self-ownership, because the victim in that case is the person who died. Like, yeah, they're not around to feel anything anymore, but like, if you are arguing that you can pay off their family, whatever amount it is, like I appreciate the game theory of your argument, like, and they can just like retaliate with very little cost. But my point is, like, the victim's family doesn't own that family member that they lost. So they don't get to like decide what the price is on victims' behalf.
That's a fair criticism, because I know that it comes from the common law structure. It's a common law doctrine, essentially, that if a murderer murdered someone's families, that they would pay their estate, right? So I do see that criticism. I do think it might be might not necessarily be a we might not be able to derive it from a logical like principle through the NAP, but I think it would practically manifest itself that way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and actually, like the second part of your answer, which regarded, having an outlaw status, that kind of vibes with me pretty well.
Okay, yeah.
What if they don't pay? What if they say no?
Then they won't be. Then they won't be protected. Their rights won't be protected. Do you know what I mean?
So then, free game.
That's how Yeah. So essentially, they would have an incentive to get the hell out of that society that they were in, because what they knew that anyone at any time could just do anything they wanted to them, and they would not be prosecuted. I think they have a pretty good incentive to get out.
I think in order for prison abolishment to work, I mean, I've said this in many things that involve anarchism or libertarianism or whatever your brand is, for lack of a better term, but strong communities. Like the state has destroyed strong community bonds because they want the people to rely on them instead of their neighbors. And I think that strong community bonds, knowing your neighbors and helping out your neighbor, I guess incentivizing that, again, lack of a better word right now, incentivizing that they in turn watch your back, you scratch mine, I scratch yours. I think that's necessary in most things involving anarchism.
Yeah,
and
100%.
And prison abolishment.
I'm a very big proponent of that in my job now when I talk to my clients, because I'm on that flip side now where I'm in victim services. And so I'm working with victims of crime and whatnot. And so like I see where these murderers and rapists don't even make it to the prison system they don't even see the inside of a jail cell. So when I safety plan with like a domestic violence victim or something like that, 9 times out of 10, it's working outside of the system. So it's without law enforcement, without them being arrested, all that kind of stuff. And it's totally strengthening their support group, like their family, all that kind of stuff. I've had successful cases where all it took was like an uncle, a brother, dad, all 3, I don't know, meet homeboy in the parking lot with a firm finger in the chest, like, we see you, stay away. The consequences aren't us calling the police. And that person leaves her alone. So it's like he's going to behave because he knows that there's a group of people that aren't going to allow him to misbehave. And so I've always been a big proponent of having people in your life that you can turn to. And if it has to become bigger, like the community to help keep safe, obviously that's better. Because even like we just recently had a church scandal, typical child porn. It sounds so terrible saying typical.
Typical.
But yeah, typical child porn, grooming kind of a thing. But if the church had been more cohesive, they would have seen it early on. But they weren't. There was a lot of infighting and finger pointing and things. And so if they had been, a community, they would have seen these behaviors and, nipped it in the bud a lot earlier. So I agree on that sentiment.
What did the family do about it?
They relied on the criminal justice system.
That's unfortunate.
So he did get the quote unquote max aggravated sentence he could get, but the judge himself said he was disappointed that he only had 10 to 24 years to choose from because he would have given him life.
Yeah, I think kind of like a common theme of a lot of what we're going to be talking about is where just naturally in the current system, you often have to find workarounds or like other things to patch the so-called solution.
100%.
Which is like, I'm not ready to wear the label prison abolitionist, but I'm like damn near there with like kind of some just so I'm able to make the argument myself and bring up the right points if someone's to turn to me and be like, why is prison abolition a thing you believe in? Because obviously we all know it's not about rehabilitation. Like,
it's punishment.
It's just to make an example of someone. And also if we can make some fucking scratch off, some people doing 10, 15 years, why not?
Right. Yep.
So that's obviously that should be enough to make most people skeptical, at least of the current situation, to like not defend its like at the very least, a good libertarian should be like, yeah, this could use some work. And at best, they can see that the whole thing is miserably fucking rotten.
Right.
It's like America has a 60% recidivism rate. If a company operated on that business, they would be shut down immediately. If prisons kept people safe, America would be the safest place in the world, and clearly it's not. I think this conversation brings up like a good point about how our culture is so obsessed with like courts and criminalization and
SUV baby.
and cops. Ugh, don't even get me started. And it's like limited our imaginations on the possibilities and replacements when it comes to holding people accountable for violent crimes, right? Yep. So like there could be a solution out there none of us are even thinking of because we're still focused on like replacing this monstrous system with something smaller that is kind of like created with that in mind, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, most libertarians are still, like, this might even freak out some of you guys, but whenever you hear the term, oh, well, how would we do courts in an anarchist society? It's like, who knows if that's what the system is? Like, it could be like a much more direct line of, like a much more direct line of restitution and like investigation. Mm-hmm. It could fucking look like anything.
Yeah, we used to have private eyes and things like that to do our investigations.
And we just don't know what we don't know. So you know that enough is enough to stay humble.
I think what people value about courts is not so much like the building or the guy in the black robe, but the procedure and the fact that you've got like a fair hearing.
Yeah, like it's a mediation, really. So it's like I kept.
That's defunding the police.
And are there people who, in the Democratic Party,
are there people in the Republican Party who think we're sucking the blood out of kids?
I'm not sure. Are there people in the Democratic Party who want this for president?
Fair, and then they do it. And he's like, all right, we'll move along. It was very nice, just on the street justice.
And that actually has historical precedent because that's how societies like ancient Ireland or medieval Iceland or the Republic of Kospaya, when it had no state, that's how they acted too in their like legal structure.
It's literally a court of your peers or whatever they call
it. Right,
literally,
yes, correct, yeah. And if mediation or courts were like mediation like that, it would be so much better.
Yeah, but we still have people saying, army, police, and courts. It's like, ew. Let's think beyond that. And a lot of us are guilty of it. We go like very far down the rabbit hole and don't realize we might have these little blind spots. I think prison abolition is one. Like it's something, like you said, Ace, that people just don't bring up enough in this community. It's like like you can make your wood chipper memes, but and as much as we all might like to make fun of theory, like there has to be a certain point where you're like, okay, but solutions. What are the solutions? Not just like this is the one that works, but like how do we go about reimagining this whole idea of punishment?
Right. And I think with prisons too, it's like as Flintlock was saying earlier, it's like they actually, and just from a practical perspective, they cause a lot more problems than they solve a lot of the times, just because of like how horrible it is in there and like how unfair it is. Like I think your example was someone killed someone. What was he? A pedophile, and he got more years. The killer of the pedophile got more years than the pedophile.
Yeah, and he was super upset about it. He was very remorseful about it, and I kind of I was giving him like the come on man, you don't have to play these games with me, like you and I both know that was the right thing to do. And he like had a good laugh about it and was like, yeah, I'd probably do it again. I said, don't say that loud. Don't say that too loud, but me too.
Yeah. And there's a lot of prisoners in prison who I feel, here's the sad thing though, right? Just as a culture itself, it seems like American people just do not ever think about prisoners' lives or care about them. Because there's a lot of prisoners who are legitimately, even if they've done something bad, I don't feel like they deserve what they're getting. Do you know what I mean?
No, some of them just violated words on paper, not somebody else. They didn't hurt anybody else. I had a friend did 2 years in a state prison, and he was shipped off to some private prison in Oklahoma, but he found himself in the middle of a race war, and he's just Joe Schmo white dude, and he doesn't care. He's like, I don't care. And he was told, you're going to choose. You are going to choose
Gotta
a
love
side
that.
because if you don't fight with your race, we're going to kick your ass. And so it's like he had no choice. He's like, I don't want. He's like, I tried to stay on the edges, but I was like, oh my god.
Well, who hasn't been in a race war, you know? No,
right.
I'll call that Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's 2021, guys. Who hasn't been in one?
That's
I mean,
right.
come on.
Let's
Yeah,
just go
true
down
story.
to the supermarket. you go out in team colors, which is whatever you got, and that's life.
It's
Also-
I got the numbers here for statistics on various drug offenses.
Oh, I thought you meant the numbers for something else.
No, not for race wars.
I got the numbers on my
came
team
prepared.
colors.
No,
Oh,
as of
Jesus.
as of 2020, I don't have the 2021 numbers. Don't sue me. But 2020, 1 in 5 are incarcerated on drug offenses. So and it's a lot of non-violent offenses. That's not even like taking into consideration all the non-violent offenses, just drugs.
And even like something like if someone stole my car or something and like crashed it or something, I would be pretty upset. But also the idea that this kid who went for a joyride in my car is now going to be locked up for like 10, maybe 12 years or something for that is unconscionable to me.
That reminds me of this meme that's like, prison systems really do be like somebody steals your car and then you lock them in your basement for 3 years and all your friends are like, bro, chill.
Right.
It's wild to me.
Yeah.
Really quick, I just wanted to say, like, we had 3 topics that we really wanted to cover, and that was what about the rapists and murderers, alternatives, and then how practical it is. This first 2 are kind of like blended, so we're still kind of talking about like what about the rapists and murderers if our listeners are getting a little bit confused. And I do want to say that part of the problem with prisons is that there are like 3 major pathways out of crime, and that's employment, marriage, and age. And the solution right now to crime often damages a person's chances at any of these pathways because it's hard to get a job when you have a record. It's hard to meet somebody, marriage, when most of your prime is spent in prison for things. And also the current system takes like the most hated people and strips them of their humanity. And once that becomes acceptable, they apply it to a lot of other people. So when we're talking about what about the rapists and murderers, it's a very small percentage of people. Though if we only talk about abolishing prisons for people who do not commit violent crime, we could release all of those people, including violent crimes that are like selling drugs near school, not considered a violent crime. We would still be in like the top 30 countries with the largest prison.
Yeah.
There would be
rates.
2.3 million free people if they abolished prisons tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and talking to my inmates that I worked with, the employment was the number one thing, and that's actually what got me in trouble at that place, because I got in trouble for bringing in prison contraband. Because my job was to teach them life skills, which was to like get them out of prison so they don't come back. So it was like health, relationships, employment, and I don't remember what the other one was. Yeah. And after talking to so many of them, I realized like they can't get a job when they get out. I don't care how many companies say they hire convicts. It's not true. And they would go back to what they know. They know how to make money. They know how to survive. So that's selling drugs, stealing, whatever. So they'd find themselves back. Well, I literally got pulled into so what I found through my research was that the best way, especially in my state, for an inmate to survive outside of prison was to start their own business. Learn a trade, start a business, super easy. Now you're on your own boss. You don't have to worry about background checks, all that stuff. Well, I created basically a class, found all the paperwork, taught them how to fill it out, showed them what they needed to do. And I got called into the warden's office for prison contraband because I didn't get approval on the material that I brought in. Oh, and that's when they basically said, like, you're doing a great job and we love that, but you need to not do such a great job. And I was like, literally. And I was like, okay, like check. And then when I got in trouble the second time for not fudging numbers, because the whole reason our prison system existed, like why we got the contract was for rehabilitation. Those were those life skills classes. We were supposed to prove to the DOC we're going to rehabilitate these guys. And they were asking me to fudge numbers and punish these dudes and like inflate numbers. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. And I flat out said, I got into this to help people, not numbers. And my boss was like, well, you're in the wrong business.
Oh.
And I was like,
Wow.
you're correct. And so I totally put in my notice. And they put like bets on me. The inmates were like, oh, you're not going to last long. Like, you actually give a shit. And they were right. Yeah.
Jay Flintlock has something to say.
Sorry for not raising my hand. I forgot that button existed.
No, I love that button.
So several things. One, you're ruining their precious recidivism rate. How are they supposed to have slave labor without their recidivism? I mean, I can't remember. You said 60% U.S. wide. I know in Missouri it's about 46%. It's almost half. Half the people are returning. That's fucking insane. You should know that your system is fucked if 1 out of 2 people come back. But anyways, I digress.
They know it's fucked.
Helping people. So in the chat that we have going on right now, Cory asked, are COs likable people? And I'd say I always say in everything first responder related across the board, it's about half the people that I personally met who are first responders joined with the intention of helping out their community in the way that they have been indoctrinated to do it, to perform that task that they feel drawn to. I mean, I personally just wanted to help out my community, and then I found out, exactly who the type of people I was working with, what the mentality behind "quote unquote" corrections is, which is it's really just punishment. We need to get away from punishment mentality as a culture, and then also it's really hard to. I can't remember what you said, Buckles, but it kind of just jarred that into my memory. But it's really hard talking to. Oh, that's right. Okay, so I'm a roofer now, and I work with a lot of people who are convicts. They're former inmates, and
I'm sorry, a what?
Pardon?
You're a what?
I'm a roofer.
Oh, a roofer. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
And so, and anything to get out of prison, dude. But anyways, I work with some former felons, and talking to them, it's the system indoctrinates them to thinking like, no, this was good for you, and so like you should be thankful that you went to prison. I mean, I've been working on one of my buddies who's on my crew right now for almost a year now, convincing him that what they did to him was wrong. What he actually did was he was going to commit armed robbery because he was desperate, and so he busted in through the door, and it was an old lady, and he said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," and he walked outside and he laid down on the ground and he waited for the police. Wouldn't it have been better just to pay restitution, or work it off, or build a new door? And I mean, that builds community bonds. My cousin was also in for drugs, and trying to convince him that what they did to him was terrible and the state should be destroyed for it. Oh, they should be destroyed. It should be destroyed for a lot of things. Nonviolent PBS. I know that PBS follows me, so
it's all right. It's all right. Langley, listen in.
Yeah,
allegedly.
Allegedly. But convincing them that what happened to them was wrong is just one of the most difficult tasks I've run into.
Yeah. And it's just like, it really infuriates me too, because it's like, and I mean, you had firsthand experience, so you could probably speak to this better than I can, but it's like just these people's lives are just like destroyed, even if they actually did something bad. The fact that they're even after they get out of prison, as Mel was saying earlier, their lives are just like completely ruined.
Oh yeah.
A really good book to read about that is Just Mercy, because like when you think about somebody who's like a bad guy or whatever, you really just see like his crime and not like the mitigating circumstances. But like that book will really open you up to like everything. A lot of people, hurt people basically. A lot of people who are in the prison system are victims of crimes themselves. And I think that's a big problem that should be taken into consideration.
Well, what you said about the recidivism. Thank you, my fucking word. Right in our little sidebar here. You haven't said that on mic yet, have you?
No. What he's talking about is like our recidivism rate is not people committing new crimes. Most of it's like failure to update your address, literally being 5 minutes late to an appointment with your parole officer. There is a guy who just now, I can't remember the lady on Twitter who posted it, but like literally an hour ago, I saw this article where a guy forgot to update his address card for um, for his parole officer, and he killed himself because the prison conditions right now, because of COVID, are so bad. They can't read their mail. They can't have visitors. It's pretty much been like lockdown for a year, over a year. Yeah. And that's all he did. He didn't commit a new crime. He was released. He forgot to update his address, and they put him back in jail. Prison.
Yeah.
I was still a CO whenever they were doing COVID restrictions on inmates, and honestly, dudes who I was friendly with for a year and a half became my worst nightmare because they got really squirrely, and rightfully so, and I understood. But I mean, what they're doing to the people, what the government's doing to the people is cruel when it comes to lockdowns. What they're doing to inmates is a fucking humanitarian. It's wrong. It's just fucking wrong, plain and simple.
I've been reading about a lot more like solitary confinement and every excuse in the book to do it right now because of COVID restrictions.
Yeah, there's an activist group in Arizona that I'm a part of called Striving to Achieve Reform Together. It's START. And it's mostly like moms and family members and stuff of incarcerated people. But when you hear the horror stories, and like especially when COVID had first started and things, and the lockdown started, when you heard what was coming out and what these people are going through in here, like it's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah, and solitary confinement is used as torture.
Oh yeah,
right.
100%. It is psychological.
The fact that they're using this, like, just because it's like, no, these people are actually being tortured on top of being imprisoned. It's evil.
It's they're using COVID also to expand like the prison industrial complex. They got rid of, in a lot of prisons, mail, and now they're doing this thing where they scan mail and the prisoners can read it electronically. But now the prisoners have to pay for that stuff. They have to like pay to read their own mail. Like when it comes to entertainment type stuff with like music and phone calls and visitation, they're changing visitation to Zoom type calls, but it's some company that charges so much money for these visits, and with the phone calls they charge so much money, and commissary
it was like
so
15,
much money, like
it was like $15 or $20 I'm pretty sure for each call, and that might not sound like a lot of money to you, but like they get paid $725 a month if they have a regular job, and if they have the best job, which is work release, at least in my facility, it was $725 a day.
And
so
if you
got to save up a lot to get that call.
If you think about like how sending people to prison, it's kind of like blowback with policy. Right. Basically, it creates like ripples, and you can like lock a guy up and it just doesn't affect him. It affects that family. It affects that community. So these people with loved ones in prisons, some of them are not like bad off, but most of them are very bad off, whereas like a $15 visit is their food for the week, so
to add on to your point real quick, Mel, it also, like, if you think about a lot of these like young people who commit crimes like in their early 20s, how many of them don't have dads, and because their dads were locked in prison, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It completely destroys the upward economic mobility of a community.
100%.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of not kinda. That's exactly what we saw during the whole civil rights kind of MLK Malcolm X period. Is they fucking weaponized their prison system to just decimate what was a rowdy population, and to get all tinfoil hat, they're perfectly willing to do that again with a war on guns and decimate whatever the next rowdy group, whatever the next rowdy faction might be.
Yeah,
and it's that when and they've convinced us that this is just how a safe
and
society exists with a super weapon just sitting there to like decimate any population it needs to.
And if you're someone who doesn't care about criminals, just to think about, like, with a stroke of a pen, you could become a criminal tomorrow for these people.
Oh yeah,
right? And you would be gone. Yeah, and then you would be gone. You would be taken to prison, and then everyone else would think, "Oh, he's just a criminal. Who cares?" So, like, even if it's a selfish reason, there's still good reason to care about these people who are locked in prison.
But you know what? If you send enough people to prison and just fake enough evidence, you too can become vice president,
right?
The queen of prisons,
right? Yeah. Oh god. Man. Oh, and honestly, I wanted to talk about that too, because I don't have the stats with me, unfortunately. I feel really bad for not having them here. But isn't it? Maybe one of you guys can correct me, but I believe almost 90% of convictions are from plea deals. Correct?
Yes.
I think it's 92.9 or 92.8 or something like that.
Oh, Scott Horton just talked to, or no, not Scott Horton. They just brought it up on Lions of Liberty. Scott Horton and Lions of Liberty recently did something on criminal justice. Yes,
okay.
Oh no. Oh shit.
Oh, I know. I'm blanking. I feel so terrible. I know all these people.
It's always the worst. Wait, what?
That's the show, right? Finding Freedom, the Lions of Liberty?
Yes.
Finding Freedom, yes. He just talked about how most of the people do plea deals because they don't want to get punished worse, and you'll get punished if you make them do their job.
And I just want to... Yeah, and I just want to say that if we believe, as a legal principle, if you believe in innocent until proven guilty, right? If you're threatening a punishment on someone while they're still considered innocent, I regard that as coercion. So I would make the case that even if you are not a prison abolitionist, if you're a libertarian who believes that coercion is wrong, then you should still be in support of 90% of those people at the very least getting retrials.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Bob Murphy had a fantastic episode on his rejection of plea deals as a tactic. 2 episodes, in fact. One was solo, and the other was him bringing on like an LA prosecutor to kind of talk through some of the details, and it was a really good conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, at this stage, much like all of the dead in Iraq and Afghanistan, I mean, fucking people in prisons over here are just, they're just pawns to be played with in people's political careers, and they're perfectly willing to write whole lives off if it pushes someone in the right direction, as we've seen with our now VP. You can get second from the nukes if you just put enough people behind bars for bullshit.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Right. And the hypocrisy of it just is salt in the wound, because it's like, if you look at any of these people in Washington, they have killed way more people, kidnapped way more people, stolen way more than anyone in the prison system. Way more.
Blood-soaked monsters.
Like, yes, absolutely.
It's like, even though the question, what about the rapists and murderers is completely valid, my knee-jerk reaction is always get them out of Congress and take away their badges.
Right. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
That's the only gun control I support.
That's
Take
right.
it away from politicians and feds, dude.
Yeah.
It'd be a much safer country.
Right.
But yeah, so do we want to go like, because we've nailed kind of like the main opinion that we have murderers and rapists in power. That's well and good, but to give people the physical on the nail kind of answer, some of the more autistic amongst us need. In Ancapistan, what are we doing with like murderers and rapists? We've talked about a little bit about restitution, but like, do we just like a smattering of ideas, ideas that are out there?
I talked about this earlier, but I still like the system of that was often used in like common law systems in ancient Ireland and medieval Iceland, where if they did not pay restitution, if the murderer was such a vile person, then no one in that community is going to protect his rights anyway.
Oh, okay.
So right. So if that person is truly vile, then no one, anyone could attack him, and they would not be prosecuted for it. You know what I mean? Because
that seems
I've
kind
seen
of
that
common
documentary.
sense.
Yeah.
That town where they just
the whole town's like
someone.
Yeah.
Everyone's
no
like,
snitching, motherfucker.
Yeah.
but like, I think a lot of these problems are only problems because we're in a centralized system right now with no other type of security, because it's like, and also I do think the idea of like voluntary like exiles for prisoners who are like, okay, my rights are not going to be protected in this community, so I'm going to go to this place where they will protect me in exchange for me maybe like, you know, working there or paying off restitution to the family to regain my status in society. I think that's a very practical idea, as well as like ethically consistent.
Didn't you also talk about banishment at one point?
Well, I think the banishment would come from people just excluding them from their property. You know what I mean? So it'd be like
the idea of banishment. That's a fantastic idea and an alternate to taking a life.
Right. Yeah. So like the idea of banishment would be like, people, if there's a criminal around, no one has an incentive really to like banish this or to let this person on their property. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Except for maybe other criminals, but then you just banish those other criminals too. So it's sort of like, they would sort of be incentive. They wouldn't be able to go anywhere. No one would let them in their businesses or houses or property or anything. And they could evict them off their property, so that they would essentially be, you know, exiles from that society, you know, both in a literal sense sometimes. So
it's also important to keep in mind, right now we have one monstrous system, and people think it needs to be replaced with one monstrous system.
Right.
But instead, it's gonna be like super small scale, you know. Some communities might like exile, some might like banishment, some might just like killing the people. Not much you're going to be able to do about it in Ancapistan.
Looking at you, Texas.
Right.
Yeah. But I will say there, I do want to say, because I feel like some people might get the idea that, okay, well then, you know, some people on the other side might be like, oh, so we're just going to go around and murder criminals because we think there might be criminals. Well, no, I do want to say that if you go to kill a criminal and you're wrong and they did not commit the crime or something, or they're not, then you probably will face prosecution. So there's always a risk to vigilante justice. I just want to
bear that responsibility.
That's right.
Stuff like mediation, where some victims really just want to confront the people that hurt them.
Yes.
They don't want anything, you know, like exile. But also, completely aside from that, trying to make, you know, get my thoughts straight. Right now, our prison system, it's kind of like all these people in a certain place go to this other certain place with they don't pay attention to like what that person's good at. So these voluntary exiles could be like, there could be like an engineer prison, and there can be prisons that are like very like specified to like a certain craft, I guess.
Right.
Oh, please don't send me to engineer prison. I don't want to hang around those nerds all day.
As long as they're not civil engineers, I suppose. I'm just kidding.
Straight to the gulag for them.
Hell yeah, dude.
But yeah, not just one system.
Yeah.
Basically.
And I just going off your thing, I think it's important to distinct, because like the prisons, quote unquote, would not be like prisons today, obviously, right? But they, in the sense that the prisoner technically could leave the premises of like this theorized prison,
they could choose their prison,
but they would essentially be once they left, they would not have their rights protected by anyone in that society near them. You know what I mean? So they would be taking an enormous risk, leaving the security of their exile.
How do you guys feel about Australia?
Right.
Do we want to go ahead and talk about like how practical prison abolition is?
Yeah,
it's not.
Sure.
Where would you put homeless vets?
Oh well,
I mean, just gonna let them wander in the streets? They fought for this country. Well, they think they did. It's about half. No, I'm kidding. But they think they fought for this country. Where are you gonna put them? Prison, obviously.
A lot of people, like, we're not talking about tomorrow. You wake up in 2.3 million prisoners released into society and nothing changes. That's not practical. It's something probably far out in the future, maybe not even in our futures. And I think personally, society will have to meet several I guess goals before. Cory, do you have something to say?
Yeah, one thought that occurred to me, right? Like, instead of necessarily releasing the 1.3 million prisoners just out into public. Could we kind of hand the prison over to them in the sense of like giving them a place to stay, like 3 hots and a cot, but like you manage it, you raise revenue.
Or like they own their cells and then they kind of collectively own the space.
And yeah, exactly. And like those who leave, like, I mean, maybe there's some provision to like have an ankle monitor or something. I'm not exactly sure, but
I really like that idea.
There would be some
the prisons and the communes.
There would immediately be some serious consensual duels that happened.
I do think that there would have to be some shuffling because if you read like about the Attica prison riot, they essentially took the prison over, right? There was a lot of bad prisoner on prisoner stuff that occurred as well during that riot.
Yeah.
So I do think you could turn the prisons over to the people to manage, but you might have to do a little bit of shuffling of prisoners beforehand.
But I also
there was
feel like
self-policing,
if they
though.
knew.
I'm sorry.
That's true. There was.
Yeah, there was self-policing. There was immediately started raping, but like the inmates band together and they said, "Hey, we're not doing this shit, dude. Like we're doing this for a fucking reason. Cut the shit.
Right.
Squash the beef for now. We're doing this. This is it. Full steam ahead."
Squash the beef is an awful euphemism.
Yeah, after I talked about fucking inmate rape. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's like what would that be?
But
sorry.
It's fine.
I'm sorry, boys and girls.
But Cory, that's a really like Rothbardian take too, because Rothbard, I'm pretty sure, would have come to that same conclusion because he did that with like certain businesses associated with the state. He was totally fine with like, the workers should just take over the company if they're in bed with the state. So yeah, I like that point.
Nature will find a way.
I don't know how many of you guys are Bob Murphy fans. Or at least somewhat fans. There was something he discussed on one of his episodes, like how Rothbardian, whatever. I keep getting that confused with the Twitter user. How Rothbardian societies would be peaceful. And he talked about like 7 or 8 conditions that would need to be met. And I think they are worth mentioning how in a libertarian society, there would be like hard money. So like no boom bust cycle. There wouldn't be like massive disruption of the family units, removing one or both parents for things like the drug war, regular war. There would be like, drug laws would be way more relaxed. Minimum wage laws would be there wouldn't be any. Looser restrictions on adoption, there's no incentive to have children you can't afford, because that is definitely part of crime.
Yeah.
And then I don't have any proof of this whatsoever, but I think that without the state, mental illness and psychological issues that lead to poverty and deprivation of all different kinds would also be muted.
They couldn't afford to put LSD in the fucking water anymore.
And then I do believe public schools a big cause of those types of things.
Yeah. Talking about prisons, like public schools are like mini. I don't want to lessen, how horrible prisons are, but it's like a miniature mimic of a prison type thing, right?
It's used to
the
routine
pipeline
and orders.
Yeah.
And
if you Google, I don't want to go on public schools too long, but I just want to say, if you Google public school makes me, and then Google fill in the auto text, you will see the most black-pilling, depressing thing you've ever seen in your life. It's really sad what these kids are obviously Googling.
And then one last thing, if training and whatever, getting armed and trained is an important part of revolutionary politics, but so is building up your communities. So if your community has more resources, they're not all going to fund this $1 trillion prison system. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know what's above trillion. What's above trillion? Quadrillion. Yeah.
Fucking billion.
It's probably $250 billion prison system. I don't know. But all that money is going to be like within your community, so you're going to have more ways to help people through like mutual aid and whatnot.
Exactly.
And that's going to strengthen your community and mute crime as well.
And you'd have to imagine, jumping off that, Mel, you'd have to imagine like in libertarian society there'd be a lot more mutual aid societies. So like the whole like like I do think poverty definitely has some correlative to crime. So I think that would definitely be lessened for sure, and especially what you said with like hard money and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's always funny because whenever you bring up prison abolition, everyone goes, "Ew, how like lefty," and it's like that's actually like pretty damn Rothbardian and bulletproof, discussions to be had about this whole topic.
Right.
I just assume people want chomos to live, like whatever.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a lot. Like when people see the title of this episode, they're going to be like, "Oh my god, they've done it! They are rooting for the pedos,
right?
What the fuck? And the murderers."
Yeah,
I just want hunting season to be, open season. That's all. Stop for assuming.
Oh god. Yeah, and in Kapistan, you instead of seeing Taliban hunting licenses on the back of trucks, you're gonna see someone else.
Oh yeah, dude.
I know you'd be rocking one. So
yeah.
What's the other big topic? You said you had 3, Mel?
Well, we covered the first 2, which was rapists and murderers and alternatives, and then the last one was just how practical it would be.
Oh,
the state would never allow it.
I also do want to say one thing real quick, because I feel like you brought it up earlier, but like sometimes I'll say like prison is actual slavery, and people say no, it's not, and it's like no. If you look at the 13th Amendment, they literally say that it's okay if you're convicted of a crime. So yeah,
I'll take you from your family and I'll put you in my basement. I'll pay you $7.25 a month, and then I will pay you, and then I'll feed you. But it's not going to fill you up. But don't worry, like I'll sell you stuff like at upcharge prices that you can't afford unless someone's giving me money to give to you. So it's cool, dude. Don't worry about it.
People really underestimate how the state creates the conditions, or maintains the conditions that creates crime and exasperates violence. So it's very hard to think about society without prisons, but there's like a lot of reimagining things that you have to do first.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about this for if I could be really radical for a second. If there was like a button I could push where it was like, okay, you push this button and all the non-violent prisoners get released from prison right now, but so do all the violent ones. I would push the button. You know what I mean?
Well, just on a numbers game. I mean, the amount of people you're releasing that you know. Yeah.
Prison Rothbard button.
Yeah. Right. But for prisons.
No, I dig it. Is there any anyone want to go on some tangents we haven't covered? I've got some Q&A stuff.
Okay.
But if anyone wants to go on a spiel that we haven't covered yet,
I've got one
thing.
wait,
if somebody else can go first, if they have something.
I'm gonna raise my hand.
There you go.
Go ahead. You can go first.
He's so well behaved. I love him.
Yeah, I was trained. I got trained well halfway through the episode. Okay, so I say that I mentioned earlier that half the COs that you run into have good intentions, but I didn't really go into the other half, and I've talked about it on other shows. But I have a story. I said it in my speech for the Libertarian Party of Missouri, but it's important that everyone knows the mentality that people that the enforcers of the state have when it comes to keeping people in line, and it makes you look at the Stanford prison experiment differently and take it more seriously. Mm. But we had this inmate, his name was Bobby. He was in the surge of Iraq, and he really thought that he was fighting for freedom. It really fucked him up. He developed a drug problem, story old as time. But he was in prison for possession, and he had severe PTSD, and so every month he would have kind of an episode, and he'd kind of be moody, and me or one of my partners would have to talk him down. And so he went to, we weren't always there. I was there probably 16 hours a day, 3 days a week, and then 8 for the rest. But he went to the hole, he went to SEG, and he was having an episode in SEG, and my partner was there early, and he goes, he's CIT certified as well. He's crisis intervention trained. So before a use of force is initiated, what is supposed to happen is that the CIT officer is supposed to go and talk to this person. So he's like, oh, they're shaking up the party cans. You have two different party cans. I'm still using prison lingo. You have two different types of OC spray. It's a law enforcement mace, which is much more powerful than civilian mace. And it hurts like a motherfucker, let me tell you. Don't get sprayed. Anyways, they're shaking up their party cans, which are these giant fucking cans of mace that have, like, they look like guns. They're just like fucking, you can just hose a fucking housing unit with it. And so they're getting ready. They're pumped. They're like fucking cue the metal. Like, let's fucking go. Frothing at the mouth. And he's like, yo, I got to go in there first. Like, that's protocol, right? And they're like, yeah, fuck it. Whatever. Fine. Go do your pussy shit. So he goes in there. He's talking them down. Yo, dude, they're going to come in hot. They want this. They want you to fuck around. Like, dude, cool off. Like, you got to stay with me here, dude. We do this all the time. And he's like calming down. 5 minutes goes by and they're like, all right, cool. Fuck off. We're here now. Go away. Fucking it's go time. And they like fucking damn near physically remove him from segregation. They fuck this guy up. Like, thank you for your service. Face the fucking wall and feel the heat. And so like what I'm saying is that whether I know that some people are all privatize everything, and it's just the wrong mentality when it comes to law enforcement, because you are placing people in this mentality where, like, who I'm dealing with are animals. It's what I was taught. It's what it literally they plug it into you from day one. They are animals. They are monsters. Assume everyone is guilty, because if you don't, then then you'll play favoritism. They're all animals. And so, for a long time, I was in the mentality of inmates aren't people. They are things to fucking keep housed. And, hopefully they become people, but they probably won't. And so this is just a fucking mentality that they just indoctrinate into you. And a lot of people take it way fucking too far. This is why I'm super emphasizing mental illness. I mean, and then it goes into the conversation of veterans and just a bunch of other shit. That's not the topic of the show. Oh fuck, chat's blown up.
Well, you mentioned privatization, and Mel said she could go off on it. But yeah, Cory, what do you have to say?
I feel like Miss Buckles might have had something first, so.
No, I'm good.
Oh, cool. In that case, I'm going to say something that's going to make all of ANCAP Twitter groan, and it's going to kind of be like a blue-pilled minarchist kind of take. Like, tomorrow or like next year even, we're not going to get rid of prisons, right? So one thing I was thinking about was sort of economic ways to game the system, maybe like at the local or state level, if not the federal level, to incentivize prisons to do the right thing. And I realize that's sort of a tall order, but one idea is like to condition funding based on low recidivism rate, or like people not getting hurt or dying in prison. So it's not just like, you game the recidivism like incentive by just killing off everyone in your prison, right? Because they're not going to offend. But so stuff like that. What do people think about approaches like that in the short term?
I haven't read the book in a really long time, but there's this guy, John Pfaff, who wrote the book Locked In. It's called Locked In. And it's a little bit like that. He went on Scott Horton's podcast and talked about this as well. Because a lot of people look at a prison budget and think if you get rid of X amount of prisoners, that's reducing like tax dollars that goes to that prison, but it's not like really, that's not how it works. It's like a revolving door. And the guy on Scott Horton's podcast and in that book talked about how the incentive structure for prison, like drastically changing that could do a lot of, like, could help a whole lot. I think that's sort of related to what you're talking about.
Awesome. I'll look into it more.
Yeah. It's John Pfaff. John Pfaff.
Anyone else? Oh yeah, Ace.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to say, I said this a little bit before, but it's like, if you just think like the amount of suffering that these people go through in prison, you know what I mean? It's like a lot of people have this dismissive attitude towards prisoners as if they're, as Flintlock was saying, like they're almost just not human, right? They're just not people. But if you can like imagine, like even if you were young and you did something stupid that was actually bad, and now you're in prison for a long time and you're just being tortured, it's like I don't see how like anyone who tells themselves that it's about rehabilitation is just like I can't imagine they have any experience with the prison system whatsoever. Like it's just so hard for me to imagine anyone saying that. And especially with people like who have just not alone, even just people who have never even harmed another person, kids who've gone in prison for 20 years, they lost the prime where their prime of their life was stolen from them because they sold weed 3 times in a row. It's just like it's unconscionable what these people go through every day, and most people don't pay them any mind.
Honestly, dude, some of the shit that you see there blows your fucking mind, and I wish that you could bring cameras in prison. One, because man, some of the cats you meet there, they're some of the funniest, smartest, like fucking witty motherfuckers you'll ever meet. Damn, it's not like, but you know what? A lot of shit you see is horrifying, and like seeing is believing on some of the things. I really wish that they would. I actually just got a book, Mel. I'll text you about it, but when I finish it, but I have a reading list that you gave me. I have homework, but that I need to get to first. It's called American Prison.
Is it American Prison?
Yes. Did you read it?
I have read it several times.
Oh fuck. Okay. Well, I gotta text you.
That's how I knew what was coming.
Is it good?
It's amazing.
I can't wait for it. Okay, so he basically what it is this reporter. For those who haven't read or don't read at all, I'm looking at you, Marines from Biting the Bullet.
It's really good.
It's about a reporter who joins a prison for 3 I think he goes for like 3 months, and he just reports basically what he sees. And
Shane Bauer.
Yeah, it honestly kind of looks like something that was it kind of looks like my situation when I was in. But I'm really excited to see it. I hope it's honest.
Oh, it's so good. So I don't want to spoil a nonfiction book if that's a thing, but it alternates. Like one chapter is his story in the prison, and one chapter is like the formation of American prisons, like changing, like shifting from the system of slavery to this new system of slavery.
That sounds really good.
It is so good.
I'm excited.
I totally recommend everybody read it. It's nonfiction, but like he's a really good storyteller. He's like went undercover with the 3%ers and has done like a lot of other really dangerous undercover type projects, and he's like a really good storyteller. Totally recommend that book.
What was that book? One more time.
American Prison by Shane Bauer.
Okay. See, I was saying to Mel, I was like, all right, we're going to get all the nerds together and then we'll have homework because our listeners do like homework.
Hell yeah, dude.
I say that with love. Like, whenever it's an informational topic.
If I can plug a book that talks about this topic a little bit, not just about this topic, but Bob Murphy's book, Chaos Theory, deals specifically with this issue. And it's I pulled a lot from that in my argumentation here. So I personally think I'm a big fan of it.
There we go.
Cool.
Now it's a Ace guest box. We got the reading.
There's a couple organizations too you can look into and join.
That's something I was going to mention earlier, and I totally.
Oh yeah, sure. Like it's just gonna be Q&A stuff after this, so like go for it.
Miss Buckles, you brought it up, so you can go first.
I just have the 2 because every state usually has one, but like I just have the 2 that I know that are like national and international. And there's criticalresistance.org, and then there's masslibaz.org. It's Arizona, but they have like national chapters or whatever, and they're good. A lot of it is they talk a lot about the racial stuff, but I mean that's part of the prison conversation. So
yep.
I meant to bring this up earlier when we were talking about freeing all the prisoners, but there's this organization called Code for America. They're amazing. They in states that have legalized marijuana, Code for America has designed a program, not really tech nerds, so I don't understand exactly what they've done, but they've designed some sort of thing that checks these states for people who are in prison who should no longer be in prison because of the laws that have changed. And they freed so many freaking people, like hundreds of thousands, and it's amazing.
Can you give me that name again?
Code for America.
That's awesome.
So
yeah,
like
every time I read stories about them, such a white pill. Like, they're incredible.
Do they have any like social media?
I have no idea.
Damn, it'd be cool if we could like reach out to them and blog them or something. I don't know, like talk to them.
Yeah, I gotta talk to them.
But
I think there was a libertarian podcast who might have had them on or something.
Oh, that'd be a cool follow up if we can figure that out. But no, that's very fucking cool. Like kind of a algorithm that leads to appeals, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that would just forgotten because it's like they're just in jail rotten because whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
You know,
well, like a lot of these places, they legalize marijuana, they change the laws, but then the prisoners are expected to like know these things and be informed, but they don't. So Code for America gets in there, figures it out, helps them out.
Just because a dumb inmate and an uninformed inmate is a good inmate, and it causes less stress for COs. They don't want to do their jobs. They want people to behave.
Yeah. And this isn't really on topic of what you were saying, Mel, but it just occurred to me, you know, it's the same instinct people have where they think that if a cop is arresting someone, therefore that's a bad person. It's the same like concept that people have. Well, if they're in jail, they must just belong there. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's a circle. They're just, there's no argumentation behind it. It's just like, well, good guy did thing against that guy, so that guy must be bad, right?
Assume everyone's guilty. They're all animals.
That's right. Yes.
Be equal.
Yes. Exactly. That's a great.
The one time I had found myself in handcuffs, I had the officer telling me, he was like, "I'm so sorry to do this to you. Like, I can tell you're a good person." He's like, "But I'm new and I need to go through the motions."
Oh my god.
And I was like, ugh, so I'm a training exercise.
I had the brother speech. Hey man, brother, I'm sorry to do this to you, because I was still in. I still had a badge. Oh, brother, I'm sorry, brother, bro. Fuck off,
bro. Yeah, moot argument.
Kansas Justice Institute. I know it's local, but I'm sure people from Kansas or Missouri listen to this. And so Kansas Justice Institute.
Actually, you'd be surprised. Not one.
Oh,
there's at least one.
It's just me.
It's just
okay,
you, man.
cool.
There's
so,
one.
But go ahead.
Kansas Justice Institute, to shout out a local organization. They work to improve situation in law enforcement, or not law enforcement, but kind of law enforcement in general, just like free speech, warrantless searches, protecting small businesses and stuff like that. So, just want to give them a shout out when it comes to organizations. Also, the Innocence Project. What am I doing? I had a whole fucking raffle about the Innocence Project, who works to reintroduce cases back into the system and free people who have been wrongly convicted. Are you fucking kidding me? How could I forget that?
Well, I mean, it's just a miracle that it's actually a somewhat popular topic going on right now. I think probably like various legalization kind of helped revive that conversation. But
what kind of questions did the locals ask?
The locals?
Instagram.
they're like, they used to be the locals, but I don't know.
Yeah, that old town.
It's been a minute, gang. All right. So this one sounds a bit kind of Futurama suicide boofy, but I figured it would kind of help shake up the conversation a little bit. Could individuals hold a person in a private cell till they see fit as a means to pay off injustice?
Sorry, what? One more time?
Could an individual hold a person in a private cell till they see fit as a means to pay off an injustice?
Okay. I don't want to say I have the answer, but this is my interpretation of libertarian theory. The answer is no. You can't like restrict someone and force them to work for you. If someone owes you restitution, what they essentially have is they have a debt. Do you know what I mean? So whenever they do make money, you have a right to like retrieve some of that or a percentage of that to like for restitution, but you can't like force them, enslave them to work type thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can't, if someone is being violent and consistently violent, you do have a right to restrain them, but it is after the fact punishment that I would argue you don't have a right to do. Like
just
you can't
keeping her in a box. That's probably right. Not cool.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that'd be my answer.
Anyone else have any thoughts on chucking a quarter into a booth and just holding the guy in it?
I mean, Max Stirner says if you can, then you can. You know, like if you have the will and the strength, then you can do it.
To put him in a box, he probably belongs in a box.
But Max Stirner also says that, like, come on, man, you're better than that, dude. So, like, you know, you can physically. You're a bad person if you do. Don't do it. Like, you know, but, you know, if you do, you do, and you're a bad person. Don't do it.
Yeah, physically you can. Yeah.
But don't.
That's gonna help me a lot when I come to this problem. When I go to cross that bridge, Max Stirner has helped me decide what I will do.
Am I a bad person? Okay, I'm not, so I shouldn't. Okay, I'm better than that. Cool.
But can I put him in the box?
Physically, yes.
Well, not just Max Stirner, but and I'm not trying to push back on Ace, but as he's well aware, this is kind of like an existing debate. So like, people who side with him are more like, you know, Stefan Kinsella and people like that, and people on the other side who say you can kind of infringe at that level are people like Walter Block, and there's like a lot of back and forth in papers on this.
Yeah, it's not decisive. It's very still in debate.
I didn't think this would be. I like this. Thank you. That was a very, very academic level of answering. Usually we just slur and be like, yeah, put him in the box. But no, that was.
Unless you're a share the road bicyclist, go in the box. I don't like you. You're a bad person.
Yeah, not in my society.
Yeah, no, bicyclists get the wall.
People.
Yes. Yeah. All right, good. We do have some
in Minecraft
across the board.
Yes.
In Minecraft.
No, fuck that. I'm real life. I'm doing it.
I'm about that life. Based in long run, in our current situation, should we go for? And I guess I mean kind of like, would it be beneficial to transfer to or transition to a Nordic model like Iceland and or Finland?
Yes.
Nordic model.
Like, you know, that they have like these minimalist little cells with like a pretty view onto the fjord and sunlight and 5 meals. I don't know what the fuck
do you guys want to know that's something that's very interesting?
Is it a really fucked up system, Mel?
No.
Oh, okay. I was expecting like
maybe,
doom and gloom.
Honestly, I don't know. Depends on your point of view. Do you guys remember that Anders dude who shot a bunch of people, like 60 people killed him?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so it's in another country. Can't remember which one.
What, Norway? The mass
Norway,
shooter in
Norway.
Right?
He is from Norway. He shot up a bunch of people, killed like 50 or 60 or maybe even more.
Massive.
And his cell has like a TV, really nice bed. It's kind of like an open sort of prison type place, like almost like a subdivision type place, but it was real far from his only family member. So this dude who literally murdered all these people sued the prison system for a human rights violation and won.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, on that beautiful selling point, but the Nordic model, for anyone who doesn't know, they seem to be very very kind of chill. Empathetic to empathetic and chill to the prisoner. Like their crime is kind of irrelevant to, they are, they're serving time, and it's not really focused on the, I guess, what the punishment is, more just the time of it,
Dude, speaking of suing prisons, fuck the guy who got tobacco banned from Missouri prisons. Like, I wanted to smoke, and you're a bad person. Fuck you. Everyone wanted to smoke. Every inmate wanted to smoke. And you know what? They got real fucking rowdy after that shit. So maybe it's a good thing, but maybe it's a bad thing, and I don't like you as a person.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Every time Whiskey tries to quit smoking, I stay off Twitter. Yeah, I don't want to be in a fucking prison for that kind of environment. Mel, did you have any Q&A? Because I'm like going through this, but I didn't want to like step on your feet if you've got some.
No, I didn't have any really. I just covered the big three.
Oh, well, I asked for like questions and thoughts, and this is more like just a general thought from our good friend Wish Abish Wood. Prisons like war are for the elite to make money off of. That's it. Too great of incentives to make more laws that imprison people. Just static money and labor farms for the state. And I think that's we've touched on that, but just to say it in a sentence, I mean, I think we
always get clean.
I mean, yeah, exactly. And what is it in California under Kamala Harris? Didn't she use like slave labor prisoners to fight those fires?
Oh, dude! And they applied when they got out. They applied to go back to those same fire departments they worked with, and were denied because they're inmates.
Oh my god! My god!
The only decent thing that Newsom has ever done in his entire life was to change that.
Oh, that's good at least.
Bad people.
That is insane.
Was that before or after he was recalled?
Before, I think.
Before. It was
really?
the first things he did.
Damn. Okay, so he didn't have an ice heart. He's just a tyrant with like a little bit of love in there from doing some acid in college, maybe. I don't know.
It was probably PR. I mean,
yeah.
Newsom and Laura come from the same cloth, like from San Francisco. So.
It's like that quote. I can't remember what movie it's from. Cool story, still a bad person.
Cool motive, still murder, whatever.
Yeah.
It's crazy because it's like, we have a vice president who owns slaves and used them to fight fires. It's kind of
directly profited off of 21st century United States homegrown slave labor.
But she wears chucks and she dances. It's so cool.
Right.
Oh, I love her so much.
Isn't it kind of based that she's black though? I mean, just the
dude, Mamala, which was the worst thing the internet ever created.
My skin is crawling.
Yeah.
And not just because I have second-degree burns.
How do you think I feel? I said it and I want to wash my mouth out with buckshot, dude.
It's the only thing that works. All right. So something someone said, very hard to get past some people that they don't actually have the right to punish, which I guess we kind of, you covered a little bit with the point of the NAP and kind of right.
And this is, as Cory said earlier, this is still like an ongoing debate within libertarian circles. But from my understanding of like libertarianism and from my point of view, no, you do not have a right to punish with the NAP.
That kind of goes into the Resist Not Evil book that I wanted to talk to Mel with about. Pardon me.
Recommend it.
Yes, it's a really good book, and it's very thought-provoking whether or not you agree with everything in it. You don't have to pick a side. You can just,
I'm not even religious, and I love that book so much.
One of the things
go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, dude, I do the same thing. Are you fucking kidding me? But no. One of the things that I love about it, it says, we're like, everyone does bad things, and so if you do bad things, then how can you judge another man? Like, how can you pick someone to judge another person when everyone does bad things? It's the same thing that goes into politicians. People say, I don't trust my fellow man, therefore I need one of the untrustworthy to lord over everyone else to make sure that everyone else who is untrustworthy doesn't fuck me over, even though I myself am untrustworthy and that politician's untrustworthy. Same concept. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. I'll go into it.
Yeah.
Later, I'll go into it on my own thing.
Okay.
We don't have time.
Ace was gonna say something.
What was it? So I wanted to make clear, I've said this earlier, and I just want to make clear, when I say you don't have a right to punish someone, that also would mean for if someone like retaliated against a murderer and killed them, you would also not have the right to punish them either. So it kind of works both ways.
Assassination contracts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Right.
Any more questions?
I've got a few. I'm like kind of going through. I'm like, did we answer that? Did we not? And then some of them are more just for fun because I know I'm kind of throwing them to the wolf pack. This one, how do you lot figure the victims of victimless crime laws could be compensated?
How should they be compensated?
I believe that the degenerates should be put into prison camps, re-educated, released into society. So,
and maybe we could put like a sign up there that says like "work makes them free."
Yeah, I don't want to be corrupted by devilish marijuana smokers.
Sorry,
it's
Mel.
the jazz cabbage.
I don't want my society destroyed by these heathens,
degenerates.
Fuck polygamous. Don't even get me started.
I know with their group.
Yeah, it was a funny question because how do you figure to compensate the victims of victimless crimes? I mean, so there's no victim for the crime, so
do they mean the prisoners themselves, like the people who got arrested?
I don't know. I was mostly just being an asshole by asking it. I just wanted someone to be like, oh, that doesn't mean anything. But
dude, the instructions are written on the box.
No, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they mean because it has to be a victim to be a crime, man.
Right, but I assume it's a joke. But if they mean like the people who get arrested for victimless crimes, then the cops and politicians owe restitution once they get an honest job.
How should the state compensate people who were arrested for victimless crimes?
I think
I'm not allowed to say it.
Yeah. I think it's a joke question, but I
hope it is. Otherwise, I feel really bad for the person.
It's an X question. I feel like you would have asked that.
that is a good point.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know. I didn't know what to do with that one, so I was hoping someone would just slap it out of the air. Have we got anything else? Most of these we've answered. All right, and again, we've kind of gone over this one, but
BR, do you have any? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think truly dangerous criminals need to be kept from society. I just don't trust the government to do it, which is, I think, where many people might find themselves, and hopefully this episode's kind of taken them on a, next thoughts, next kind of things to look into, because it's a big, wide open topic. Like we were, when we first started this episode, it's like, all right, where the fuck do you want to go?
Yeah, this is a sampling taste. Dive deeper.
Absolutely.
I do want to mention really quick, we have not talked about private prisons, like
oh shit
in the current sense in this episode. I think that does deserve its own episode because it's like a really
was a private
hefty topic. Just wanted to put that out there because it does seem like a very big oversight in this episode, but it's such a huge topic, for-profit prisons.
Just privatize it, bro.
Yeah, well, that's part of what, the prison I worked for was a private prison, and that's how they got the contracts from the Department of Corrections, was that rehabilitation side. So that's where they would get, and you were paid by hour and bed. Like they filled bodies, and then how by
privatizing space.
Well, right now, private prisons hold 8% of prisoners. 92% of prisoners are in public prisons. On top of that, private prisons make $300 million in profit, whereas public prisons pay like $30 billion in wages. And so like when people talk about like prisons for profit, it's very clear where the profit motive is in that sort of system. Yeah. So in the typical sense, like private prisons, they're banning them or whatever. This is not like really going to put a dent in anything.
Yeah, a lot of these leftists who talk about like getting rid of private, which I support getting rid of private prisons too, mind you, but it's like they just talk about like we need to get rid of these for-profit private prisons, but then you realize that a lot of these prisoners are in public like state prisons, and then it's like they did nothing to actually help these people. But we also don't want them privatizing prison either, because we don't want the state privatizing the bad stuff it does. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like moving people from private prisons to public prisons without changing like sentencing. or the number of people in prisons is kind of highlights how Democrats are just as complicit as Republicans in building mass incarceration.
Oh, that's right.
It's literally doing nothing.
Yeah.
Jay,
that's why it deserves its own episode.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, I think in the private prison discussion, it might be worth comparing their incentives versus the incentives of public sector unions, and I guess Jay would probably be able to speak really well on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, one more time?
Just union membership and the perks and kind of how the overall structure of the union gives it kind of its own sort of private interest that pursues revenue from the state.
Oh, we didn't have, dude. Okay, so we had a union, right? Well, it was like a quote unquote union, but they didn't help COs at all, dude. They offered a lot of things that they didn't actually pay out on. You had to jump through a shit ton of hoops to get any help. Like if you had mental health problems or anything from your duties, which some did, and there are separate programs outside of the union that helped with that, but the unions didn't do shit, and it ended up dissolving in my state at least. So sorry, dude, I don't have the answer.
Prison guard unions are the devil.
I mean, yeah.
We're in the private prison that I was in too. They weren't even correctional officers; they were security guards. They weren't. They didn't go through the same training that a regular correctional officer would go through. It was 6 weeks instead of 12 or 13 or whatever. It was nuts.
I think a hall monitor is more accurate.
Yeah,
a violent hall monitor is more
For
accurate
real.
description.
Yeah, egotistical hall monitor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a narcissistic egomaniac hall monitor.
And they got paid $13 an hour.
Oof.
Yeah.
We are coming up on an hour and a half for this episode, so I think it's a safe place to end this episode. I do want to say, you're all invited back for any sort of roundtable on this discussion in the future. Also, if we have any guests who think that they could add a unique perspective to this conversation, or any listeners, reach out to me on Twitter, Instagram, Small Crimes, because I think this is a great conversation. Should be happening a lot more in this community.
Yep.
Because it's, very important.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any sort of last thing that they want to say before we shut it down?
If you actually go forward with this cringy ass anime episode, dude, you should go to jail.
Which one?
Oh god, we're doing another anime episode? Where the fuck?
Oh, did you not see the group chat? Okay, so there's this show called
Do not collect $200. Do not.
There's this show called Kino's Adventure, and the very first episode is about this town where murder is legal. And I've tasked the entire eMilitia to watch that episode and or stream it with me. I'll stream it.
Mel, I find it morally reprehensible.
It's one episode.
I'm not sure my weird code would allow for it.
Yeah. I'm Japanese and don't believe in nuclear weapons, but Japan should be nuked harder for creating anime.
Oh, Ace.
I'm easy.
I mean, the man's got a point.
Oh, I didn't know Austin Pierce joined the chat.
I'm ending it here. No, I'm
Hell
kidding.
yeah. Enter neocon Scott Horton. Hell yeah, dude.
Mel just
Which
blocks
is my
all
other
of
account,
us.
by the way.
Just nuke the whole conversation. We just had an hour and a half of civil discourse, and the last 2.5 minutes just fucked.
Nuke all prisons.
Nuke the prisons. There you go. That's gonna be a
nuke
sticker.
Japan again. Let's go.
Neocon checklist.
Okay, so
Exit neocon Scott. Okay, nukes are bad.
really quick, one of the people who was supposed to be on this round table, Allie, was not able to make it. Cory mentioned that he would like to hear her talk about mutualist prisons. So if we got a gang of mutualist prison advocates,
How many mutualists can you find? 6?
I don't know.
I know
Allie could
2.
have a co-mutualist friend on the podcast.
I know 3.
I feel kind of bad because I is there a mutualist prison theory? Because I thought it was closer to what you said, Cory, where it's they could sort of I'm imagining they would own the prison. That's what I'm thinking when I hear
they
mutualist
seize
prisons.
the means of their own something.
Right.
We all band together and buy a box of ramen.
Right.
Do any of you have any plugs before we end this episode?
Just that you can find me on Twitter at ace_archist.
Sweet. Cory?
Jay Flintlock, you want to plug your podcast?
Jay Flintlock on Twitter. Lever Action for Liberty. I just switched the weapon system when I got banned on 4 accounts. Lever Action for Liberty on Instagram. And then the Flintlock Faction, me and Cato, some of you know him, some of you don't, talk about various topics, and I tie in prison when I can, and various law enforcement things, and sometimes we don't talk about prison at all. We just, we do it on our own time.
Dope. Cory doesn't have social media.
Oh, okay.
No, I do, and I'm not going to give it out here, but the inner circle, or what Car Campit calls the locals, they'll know who I am. I was the large Indian dude at Childerberg, so if you know, you know.
There you go.
You know.
Cool.
Okay.
And if you haven't been to Childerberg, check out our episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I did forget to plug one thing. If you want something that's completely not this, you can listen to the Slurp Gang podcast with my co-host, but it's nothing like this, so be prepared.
Nothing like this episode. You listen to the first 20 podcast episodes.
They were our Slurp Gang days.
Okay, yeah.
Now we're clearly sophisticated and know much better, or something.
Yes.
If you made it this far, thank you so much. This is a topic near and dear to my heart, and you stuck it out. So,
this is the only topic I talk about.
Gang.